G'day, folks. Anthony, AOS coach here with not a Down Under Sigma, but a special episode, a content collaboration with someone that I'm really inspired to talk with and very excited to have on the channel. So I'd love to throw the guest, just pausing myself on YouTube. My guest is Emil from the Age of Squidmar. How are you, sir? Welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me, and I'm great. Good to be here.
No, it's absolutely a pleasure to have you. And I have been watching your YouTube channel since you've launched it, and I'm absolutely enthralled by the stuff that you put out. An amazing hobbyist. Love the stuff that you do. So I'm really excited to talk to you about hobby motivation and how do I become as great as you?
Yeah. I just play pretend. That's how it works.
You're doing well. But do you want to give the folks, for people who don't know the Age of Squidmar, like what's the channel? Who are you? What do you play? What are the games? Like, give us the lay of the land.
Yeah, so I'm a Swedish wargamer, hailing from the top north of Sweden in a city called Umeå. And I started playing Warhammer when I was, I don't know, 10, 11 something. And I played for 4 or 5 years like everyone else did. And about a year and a half, I got back again after a 17 years hiatus. And yeah, that's how it's been, I guess, ever since. Just painting and playing and having fun.
And some of the videos I really loved of yours is you've had some recent Space Marine painting. You did some terrain recently. I really liked your is it the barren land, like it's like a plains kind of terrain.
Yeah, some desert stuff. Yeah, I actually only play Age of Squidmar and Shadespire or Underworlds, but yeah, I like painting everything, so I do those in the tutorials as well.
So I think, this is the perfect topic for us to talk about because when I think about hobby motivation, I think about where to find motivation, how to keep it, how to avoid that burnout. This is real. It's a struggle for a lot of people, whether it be the new General's Handbook has just come out and people's armies don't work the way that they normally work. Maybe they've just completed a recent tournament and, that was one of their goals. And now they're like, shit, what do I do? Like, I'm so lost. Or if you're like me and you've got a whole heap of stuff up here, you look, like I'm so overwhelmed with plastic cracks. So it's pretty easy to lose motivation. I don't know about you, mate. Are you always inspired like Tony Robbins, or are you someone who kind of goes through like motivation plateaus and you struggle at times?
No, I think it's very hard to always be motivated because if you do something intensely enough, even if it's your hobby, if it's your escape to something fun, eventually it becomes more of like a chore or a job. And especially after tournaments, for me, I feel like playing is just way too much. So like pre-tournament, it's always playing a lot of games, preparing for the scenarios and finding your army build. And once the tournament comes, it's like a whole weekend when it's just focused 100% on playing. And when that is done, like I can't play. I have to rest for at least a month before I can play another game. So it really comes to me a lot as well. For me, just one of the big things is to kind of change up. And I guess we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, no, look, it happened actually to me recently. So I've just had this massive last couple of months with Age of Sigmar with Australia's largest event, CanCon, in January, then moved quickly into Adepticon, which was that March-April period, then played an amazing tournament recently when I got back called Sydney Slaughter. So it's like this been constant events. And now all of a sudden there's quite a large hobby lull for me. And it's like, I've just built up this amazing army. I've had some really good performances. I've hit this wall and I'm like, what do I do next? What's my motivation? I don't have a deadline. Where do I go? Sometimes I look at the paintbrush and I'm looking at terrain that I'm painting right now. I'm building right now, and it's quite overwhelming at times. So I know for me, motivation can be quite challenging, especially again, you as a content creator, not only do we have to
Mhm.
play games, we're creating content, we are engaging with our communities, we're trying to do our own hobby,
Mhm.
and we've only got a certain amount of time in the week.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing, because you always compare to other people. So you're gonna go on Instagram and you see like 100 people painting these beautiful minis that you probably never will reach the level of. You see Sergio Calvo Rubio wins Golden Demons and Crystal Brushes, and you see Vince Venturella, who might be your idol, and you try to emulate what he does, and you can't reach that level, and feel like you can't be there. And the same goes for gaming. You watch Ben Sava play with his Daughters of Cain, and when you play with your army, you just lose every game. And that's one of the things that I think we all have to kind of get back to in this day of there's too much information out there. Is you have to go back to yourself and kind of figure out, why do I play this game? Is it because I want to have fun, or is it because I want to win at all costs? Or why do I paint? Is it because I want to show everyone I can be the best in the world? Well, then maybe you're going to have a hard time and it's going to be stressful, and kind of have to always take a step back and watch from yourself from the outside.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
That's what I have to do.
I couldn't agree more when you think about, and maybe this will lead into our next question, which is about, well, what are some of those practical advice and tips that we can take away, and how do we find motivation, and, you know, not only in the moment, but how do we continue? And for you, you know, you are an amazing painter, so I'm sure you put in more time to a model than I do. But when it's frustrating, where do we find motivation? And behind all of those Instagram photos, those Twitter posts, there's hard work behind the scenes. We don't know that, you know, the Ben Savas of the world, the Dan Brewers of the world, you know, some of those great players, the Lorries of the world, they probably practice 2 or 3 times a week. They play, you know, they play lots of Sigmar, but all we see is those results, and we see, you know, the hours and hours and hours, and, you know, the sacrifices that these great painters make. But all we see is that each week they're churning out these amazing pictures. So,
Yeah, and I think that, like, the problem I find with, like, when you're both a painter and a player and a builder and a hobbyist is that, like, when I play, because I played Sylvaneth the last year and a half, and you watch everyone who plays Sylvaneth is like, yeah, I played 200 games during these years, and you want to be as good as them, so you start painting dryads, and you paint 90 dryads, and you realize that you really hate painting dryads. And maybe you have to kind of step back and see that, okay, maybe I don't have to play with 120 dryads. Maybe it's fine if I play with 30 of them, if that's what I want to paint. And that's one of the hard things to kind of figure out, where am I on the spectrum of playing and painting, and do I have to be as good as Laurie with Sylvaneth? I don't know.
No, I love it. And I've just started a Sylvaneth army, and I want to be as good as Laurie. I've already challenged Australia's best Sylvaneth players. I'm coming for their title. Clint's in the chat. Clint, let you know you'll be changing that badge over from Sylvaneth to me very soon. But maybe we'll start off with maybe some practical tips and advice. I can see there's plenty of people in the chat here, and they're probably keen to learn, how do we find our motivation? And then how do we kind of maintain it along the way? So maybe we'll go one for one, or you know, like, give us some tips around how you find motivation, mate.
So I think, as I've touched on a bit earlier, it's the biggest motivation for me is to do what I'm excited about right now. And when I played my first tournament about a year ago, I played with Sylvaneth, and I ended up placing 4th in the biggest Swedish tournament. And a month and a half ago, we had the second biggest, or like, it's the same event, but they happen twice a year. So we had the second tournament coming up, and I felt like I have to top this. I have to place top 3. I have to be incredibly good this time. And it was so much pressure for me. I didn't enjoy playing the games because I felt like I had to win at all cost. So one of the things I learned from that is, like, if I don't enjoy playing, 100 games pre a tournament, or if I play super defensively with my army at a tournament and I don't enjoy that playing style, but I play it because I want to win, then I've kind of lost something along the way of why I play this game. So my kind of first tip would be, like, if there is something that you've been doing too much that kind of detracts from the motivation, then move over to something else. So instead of playing these 100 games pre a tournament, then maybe sit down and play a game of Shadespire, Underworlds, or build a terrain piece. Just do something quick that so you can see like a finished result quickly, and it will give you sort of a boost to go on to the next thing.
I love that, because I play Dungeons and Dragons. Previously, I've played Frostgrave. I played Shadespire. I can't wait for Warcry. So breaking it up and having having some breaks and trying to play different things, even video games as well. I love some video games. And this is potentially one of the challenges as well, is video games eat into your hobby time. So knowing when to play and how long to play and when to kind of pull back. But variety is that spice of life.
Yeah, that's first motivation for me, at least. Mix it up.
So I'm going to start with one for my Sylvaneth. So I've just started a Sylvaneth army. Literally this week, I have 1,000 points. I'm stupid. I shouldn't have probably bought so much, but I'm just motivated. But I got really motivated about an idea or a story that I've created about basically from the Warhammer Fantasy days. You used to have these two, wood elf characters, and one was Orion. And I love this idea of Orion in Warhammer Age of Sigmar with Kurnoths around a hunting pack and being a very aggressive Sylvaneth style. So I've been kind of converting and kit bashing my Orion to be the size of Durthu. And this idea and basically the story behind my army. And, I've been talking to some of Australia's best Sylvaneth players like Liam and like Hayden. And they're all about dryads or sprite revs, and for me, that's not my story. So it's about creating my narrative, and I think finding a narrative, and whether it's reading a Black Library book, whether it's creating a name for your character and kind of a reason or a story or a color theme. For me, I love that idea of a story and driving that narrative, whether it's at a tournament, whether it's in my army. And it helps me tell a story. And if I lose, I can tell a story from that and I can have fun.
Yeah. It's a terrific suggestion to kind of find your place within the army. It's a really good thing.
Just don't steal my Orion idea. No, nobody.
No.
It's mine.
I wanted to show you. I have this this old school lady laying around on the desk now. It's the old Alariel. I have Orion in a box as well somewhere from the kid years.
It's like a kindred spirit from the other side of the world.
Yeah. So my second one kind of touches on this as well, and this is always do something for yourself in between the projects. So if you're preparing for a tournament, or if you're a commissioned painter that paints for other people, or if you just like do 100 clan rats because you have to, do something in between these projects that you do just for yourself, like a heart project. If it is installing a 3D printer, go ahead and do that. Or if it's painting terrain, or just do whatever you feel like doing. Maybe it is painting a competition piece. I don't know. But for me, I have to do something for myself in between these bigger things that are for other people, or for myself, but for a tournament.
And what's that look like for you at the moment? Like, what are you doing to break things up?
So right now I'm doing, of course, a lot of YouTube videos, and that requires a lot of time. And I also do commission work for other people. So in between those things, I have a bone grinder gargant that I'm painting, and just painting one of these leather patches that he has sewn onto his clothes. That can be enough for me, like 20 minutes, and then I'm ready to go on to the next thing. So things like that.
Yeah,
Terrain is another escape.
Yeah, terrain is not an escape for me. You can see there's a big box of terrain there. I've got two 3D printers there. My room is completely full. I've got terrain all over here. My room is a nightmare. Terrain is taking up my life. But I guess the next tip that I would share would be around making, I guess, small commitments or small activities towards your hobby goals. Now, what do I mean by that? We all might not have an hour or two to paint every day. Some people might struggle to paint, once a week. But if you're able to break up your painting into maybe a base coat in every day, commit 15 or 30 minutes, and maybe it's just one color, one model. Maybe it's putting some bases on certain things. Making small incremental tasks towards your goals. By the end of the week, you may have invested an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, just by doing a little bit of work at the end of every night, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that's totally enough. Like, just do something. That's a really good thing, especially if you're on like a mental block where you can't figure out what to paint, you can't figure out what to do. Just do something. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't matter if you have to repaint it in a month or 2 years. Just slap something on there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, I couldn't agree more, because paint is only temporary. You can always repaint something. You can strip it. You can buy a new version of your model and start again. Like, if you make a mistake, who cares? You can always fix it. You can always do something different. It's only temporary.
Even if you're painting for Golden Demon, or a painting competition, I don't know. Like, I've had minis that I've bought from like a eBay lot, and they have like texture paint on a Stormcast, and I want to paint non-metallic metal on them, and there are like no fine details left. Like, you can still paint over that and still be able to compete, like, if that's what you want to do. So, like, you don't have to strip paint, just paint over. It doesn't matter. Like, nobody's gonna see it, nobody's gonna care. Like, just do it.
Yeah, no, I love it.
So, another recommendation: paint with other people. Don't do it yourself. Like, I mean, it's fun to be alone and paint sometimes, but if you have a goal, if you're painting for a tournament, or if you just like paint a lot, like doing it by yourself, it's going to be tiresome in the end. So do a live chat and hang with people, or bring over some friends and paint together. Like, that really, really gets me inspired, because you see other paint, you can paint one of their minis and kind of like lose your own blockages for like how you have to paint your stuff, because you have to paint it to fit their army. And it can, like, for me at least, I don't know the English way of saying this, but like it opens doors, locked doors, at least for me.
No, I agree. Funnily enough, I've been painting Gloomspite kits for the last, say, 9 months. And before I move into my next project, I've actually entered the ever-chosen painting competition. So I've decided to buy a model that I'll be entering into Games Workshop's event next month at the end of July. And I'm painting a Slaanesh model, which is something that I have not painted since 5th edition Warhammer. So for me, that's breaking that up, and I guess opening a new door to different colors, different techniques, because Slaanesh and Gloomspite, very different styles.
Quite different, yeah.
Very different. Gloomspite is very, rusty and dark colors and, very dirty. But then this Slaanesh is very pretty and very, pinks and reds and purples, and even the metal. I've been doing a really thin Nuln oil to kind of just put a little bit of like pop on the
shading.
Yeah, and I'm even using a different silver, a very bright silver, compared to the Gloomspite, which is a very like rusty, dark, beaten metal, which has been a really nice change.
Nice. Can't wait to see that.
Oh, don't put too much pressure on us. But it's
Oh,
funny
yeah.
because like this weekend I got caught up in building that 1,000 points of Sylvaneth, and only today I'm like, shit, I actually need to do some painting this weekend, otherwise I'm not going to be ready. So
Are you bringing them to a tournament or?
no. This is just for the so Games Workshop has that that painting competition called Ever Chosen,
Oh
which is
yeah,
just
never just, yeah. I thought
yeah.
you
So
were painting the
that's
stuff.
literally it. That's probably the only Slaanesh that I'll paint for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I have done last week that I think really helps is sell models. So it seems funny, but I have piles and piles of unbuilt, unpainted plastic things that I've done. Oh, my camera's popped off. Basically, I basically just sold some of my my kit. It made no sense to keep it. I've had stuff there for years. If I haven't used it for a couple of years now, it's probably worthwhile me selling. So I was honest with myself. I said it was unlikely that I would go back to this project. I would try something different. And I just sold it. I sold it to reinvest into the things that I'm currently passionate about. So, and that helped me alleviate some of that that guilt and that, oh, I've got to paint this, or I shouldn't do this before I do this.
Yeah, that's a super good motivator. I do that a lot because like everyone else, I just buy way too much stuff, and like if I haven't used it or haven't even opened the box for 6 months, then it's selling time, and it kind of keeps the plastic levels in check. And as you say, it relieves a lot of stress. It's like, ooh, I don't have to worry about that anymore. That's perfect.
That's my tip. What have you got another one?
Yeah, it kind of touches on everything we've already talked about, but let's try new stuff. Like it doesn't have to be all Warhammer. Like I've been in this Warhammer bubble now, so I've only done Warhammer stuff. But as you said before with the Slaanesh thing, just like buy a different model. It doesn't have to be something you're gonna play with, and if it doesn't end up the way you want it or good enough to be in a display shelf, just sell it. You've lost $2 or something in the price that you bought it for, but you tried something different, you got inspired, you developed a new skill maybe. So try something new.
Yeah, no, look, absolutely. If I look at my cabinet and what's painted and what's not painted, what I've painted over the last couple of years has been Free People. I've painted Legions of Nagash, some Flesh Eater Courts. I've painted Zench, Zench Demons, and Gloomspite Gits, and I'm now going into Sylvaneth. So keeping those projects and trying different skills, different techniques, different colors. You know, my Free People were very red and blue uniforms, but then obviously skeletons are very dark and grim, and you know these bone colors and washes. But then Zenches are these pinks and purples. So while it's hard to kind of change and learn, it's always kind of keeping things fresh and bases change. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think changing up your style and even just going onto eBay and trying to buy a miniature that cost you a couple of dollars that's completely outside of your army style, and just practice and just try something different could go a long way.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I enjoy about being a commission painter, because like I get sent stuff that I would never buy otherwise, and it gives me an opportunity to try out new stuff. So I don't paint as many armies as you do, but it still gets like it keeps my head fresh.
Yeah, but you get paid
so whenever like a month. Yeah,
I don't get paid for it.
Yeah, but if I haven't painted for like a month, then it's then I feel like I have to ask someone of my old clients to have some models for me to paint. So yeah.
No, I love
Good thing about those two, I also have deadlines. So
well,
once it's done, it's done.
Well, that right there is actually a really good tip. I'd love you to expand more about deadlines, because when I find that I'm at my most productive and focused when I have a deadline. Tell us more about the deadlines that you have, and how do you create a deadline?
So for myself, I don't have any deadlines, and that's kind of a bad thing. Because often I paint and I paint and I paint and I add and I add, and I just never feel like I'm finished with the model, because there's always things you can do to make them even better. So I can take my bone grinder gargant as an example. It's like it would probably be good enough for most people already, and it's probably good enough for me as well. But there's always something I see that I can add, and that kind of never, like, you always have it in the back of your head as sort of like a pressure, like I have to finish this model. But when I paint for other people, I get a budget. So it's 300 or 500 bucks, and I have to, like, I can't spend more time than the hourly rate we agreed upon. So it means that I have to paint fast, and I have to sort of be happy with the level I'm at when I've reached that amount of hours. So for me, at least, that's a good way of sort of like putting something in the back, like it's done. I don't have to worry about that anymore. It looks good enough. It also helps me to develop a lot, because I have to do things a lot faster. So if I have to paint non-metallic metal, for example, instead of glazing for hours upon hours, like I have to find techniques to do it faster, and then I can apply that to my own stuff later as well.
Yeah, no, look, I agree. And I think there's this whole law of diminishing returns where I can apply a million layers of a particular color if I want to thin it down and create a glaze and make really good detail. But if I'm doing that on a battle line unit, there's only going to be so much value and so much potential in this model. Obviously, if I'm creating like a tournament list, I'm not entering Golden Demon or a painting competition. But knowing when to stop and when to move on to the next project is an important capability. Otherwise, you just chase perfection and you'll never find it. And you're more likely to stuff up your model and make that wrong kind of paint stroke. And then, like, you've either ruined it, you've got to go back a number of ways and kind of fix it up. And for me, I'd just chuck the model. I'd probably crack the shits.
Yeah, I think Vince Venturella is very strong proponent of not going back to already painted models. It's like going to the next one. Like, if you want to try a new technique, don't repaint your old one that you've already painted 3 times. Just, you have new plastic, paint that instead. So totally agree on that.
Yeah. I would like to call out, I'm just going to touch on something that you mentioned earlier, and then I'll give my next tip. So you mentioned hanging out with people and finding motivation from a community. I know a lot of people who use Skype chats, Discord channels, where they'll basically say to their group, or they go on Twitter, hey, or their group, like, hey, I'm going to do some hobby at 8 o'clock tonight, jump on a Skype or jump onto Discord and we can hobby together. Or maybe you put on something like this. I know 2 Plus Tough, for example, does a lot of hobby hangouts on his YouTube channel, and it's just him painting for an hour. And maybe you want to paint along with him and jump in the chat, and maybe it feels like a community if you don't have one. So is there any particular technology or how you kind of have that community?
No, I like, for me, I mostly hang out with people in my gaming group, and we sometimes have these Skype chats where we just sit and paint and talk about family and life, and like, every one of us have kids that are either babies or small, so it's very hard to find times where we can travel like an hour by car to get to each other. So Skype is perfect for that, or Google Hangouts. But I know there's a Facebook group called the Hobby Hangout, and yeah, there you can find like random people with the same interests as you, and find new people to get to know, you know.
No, that's great. It's funny, actually, 'cause I'm looking at the chat right now, and there are people who are currently painting along with us. So we're just one of the many examples. So that's funny. And then another really good call out from the chat is that somebody, I'm not going to try to pronounce your name because I'll obliterate it. But it's an Underworld. They like painting Underworld's warbands because it's only a handful of models. You get to try different techniques, and it's just a small little unit. And if you play the game, then beautiful, you can play.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the best things about Shadespire and Underworlds. I always keep saying Shadespire, but Underworlds is that the same with gaming. Like, it costs you $20 to buy a warband, and you have a completely different playstyle from what you played before. With Age of Sigmar, you have to paint 100, 120 models before you can play with the painted army. Here it's 4 figures, and you're done.
Yeah, I've always wanted to paint Iron Jaws, but I won't go out and invest in Iron Jaws army. But by buying that Underworld's warband, it's allowed me to go out and fulfill that goal of painting an Iron Jaws model. And if I really enjoy it, maybe I'll go out and buy more. If it's something that I don't really enjoy, or maybe it's like a practice model in preparation for that army, I think it's a great call out from the chat. Thank you.
Yeah. So more paint tips. I I don't like painting in like a production line, like that. There's nothing that kills the soul more than that. Maybe being ginger, but otherwise it's yeah. Don't do that.
It's funny you say that, because that's where I actually enjoy my painting the most. I'm a production line painter. I paint like 40 models at a time, and it drives me insane when I'm not, like, me painting right now. There's one particular model for Slaanesh. I'm painting the is it Selesky, the Slaanesh model with like the dancer on top. But painting one model that is driving me insane. I'm used to painting like minimum 20, usually 40, like in a row, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah. I don't know. I get tired. Like if I paint an orc and I paint the armor, like when I paint the armor, it's like it's been too much red. I have to move on to something leathery now, or skin. It's like I painted 20 dryads, and I told myself I will never paint a single dryad again, never. And a year later, I have 90 of them, and I hate myself for doing that. It's the worst thing I've ever done.
So knowing what you enjoy is important. So so I find I'm most productive when I do those batch painting, but I also make sure I reward myself. So I've just painted like 140, 160 of the Gloomspite Gits, the little grots.
Oh my
God. But in order to kind of keep myself motivated through the tons and tons of the same model, essentially, I have little rewards, such as a little character or a squig monster or something that's a little bit different that I can take a break. Otherwise, you're right. If I was just painting like 90 dryads nonstop, I probably would go insane, and I probably would not enjoy myself, and I wouldn't want to come back to painting.
Yeah, but it's funny because I watched another YouTuber called Goobertown. I think he's Australian.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And he painted 100 grots in, I don't know, was it 40 hours or something? It ended up being, and I thought to myself, I can't imagine painting the same model for 40 hours. And then I realized that, oh yeah, like my competition units, I probably spend more than 40 hours on one single miniature. But yeah, to each its own, I guess. It's whatever you prefer. I just don't enjoy the painting line style of painting.
So I'm going to throw two here. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I feel like you've shared more ideas, but that's okay. I like hearing what you've said. I'm going to try to catch up a little bit. So one, and it's probably like a bit of a shout out to yourself, would be if you don't enjoy something in the hobby, outsource it. If you don't like building models or cleaning mold lines, either pay somebody to do it for you, or go onto eBay and buy pre-built models. If you don't like the painting side of it, or you don't believe you're a good painter and you don't want to invest the time to paint an army, find a commission painter like yourself to paint up your model, so you get to do more of what you enjoy, which is maybe the gaming side of things. So outsource if you can. Recently I've bought resin bases. So my Gloomspite are all on like this forest, like real forest base that I bought from back to basics. No, not the green stuff or roller. So there's tools out there, but
Yeah, but
And
they
I
have
bought,
resin bases too.
yeah,
That
I bought resin bases so that I could fast track the process of having to build 140 unique bases for my grots. So outsource, outsource, outsource.
Mhm. Yeah, I did that with my dryads. Bought pre-built dryads because nobody's going to tell the difference if I built them or if I bought someone else's dryads.
Yeah, no, I love it. And probably the latter part to that was we've talked a lot about painting, and I know a lot of people, at least in my community, they're probably more of a gamer than they are a painter. Game more. People enjoy themselves and they find motivation when they play games. So if you're not finding motivation, often it's because you're not playing enough, and maybe you don't have time to play 2,000 point games all the time. Okay, play 1,000 points. Some of the most recent fun that I've had is either playing in teams tournaments, so playing 2-on-2, or we play the Age of Sigmar game called Triumph and Treachery, which is essentially 4 to 6 little smaller forces all on the same battlefield. So it's an amazing mechanic, but just mixing it up and playing different scenarios and playing narrative scenarios, and steering away just from those traditional matched play general's handbook scenarios. You feel motivated, you feel pumped, you had a good time, you enjoyed yourself with your friends, and you'll want to play more. I think if that's why you come to the hobby and you want to play games, find ways to play more.
Mm-hmm. And people are gonna hate me for this, but paint with gray plastic, play with gray plastic. I mean, that's I don't know. Like if you have a hard time finding motivation to paint, and you have a painting line that's like a year long before you're finished with all your minis, but you have them built, play with them, why not? Because otherwise you're going to feel burnout when you get to them, and you're going to be tired of that army, and you're going to be tired of that miniature because you've had it being stressed in the back of your head for years. So just play with it. It's a toy. Have fun.
That's fine. Yeah, I agree. Play with your miniatures. Obviously, at a tournament or an event, they'll often have a restriction on 3-color minimum. But we have a local games club where we all kind of meet once a month, and it doesn't matter if your miniatures are gray. It doesn't matter if they're on square bases or if they're half built. Just come in, have fun, play with your models, and hopefully you get inspired to then go home and paint and continue building your guys, and continuing to build that force, and come back next month and maybe one of your units are painted, and then you kind of over time we get to that 2,000 points that is really nicely painted.
Yeah, it's also a good way to find out if you like playing with that model. So you have 120. How many grots did you paint? 140.
140, and that's actually a really good point. Is sometimes and I've done this in the past where I've built a unit. Let's say it's skeletons with spears, hypothetically. But I realized that in the game, skeletons with swords are much better than skeletons with spears. So I've just spent hours and hours and hours building, painting, and only on the tabletop did I realize that the spears are not as good as the swords. I'm disappointed. I need to go back to the drawing board. I need to paint and build. So playing with grays, playing with unbuilt so just the bases, is a really great way to practice, so that your army, the way it looks, you're not wasting your hobby time.
Yeah, and it can really kill your motivation if it's you spent a month or two painting a certain model in units, and you figure out that it's not fun, and you've wasted 2 months of fun for doing stuff that you don't enjoy, and you won't even end up playing with them. So,
agreed. So my next tip would be, off the back of everything I just said, was to enter into events and tournaments. So you don't have to be the best gaming person in the world. You don't have to go in there to kind of crush everyone's face and go 5 wins and no losses. But entering tournaments can be a great way to motivate yourself, to create that deadline that Emil's already talked about. It gives you something to aspire for. You most likely will want to put down the best army that you can have painted, and maybe you have the goal of winning the best painted army, or you'd like to get a nomination for best painted, just sign up to events, and whether you want to win, lose, or draw, just go in there and have fun and paint, and you'll find that that looming deadline often is an amazing driving force for your hobby. I don't know about you. I certainly find that I'm most motivated when I have those deadlines from a tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of touches upon a lot of things we talked about earlier as well. Is that, like, when you paint for a tournament, good enough is good enough. You don't have to make everything perfect, and you kind of realize that after your first tournament, when you speed painted the last week, like 30 last models that you needed to have done, and when you come to the tournament, people are still going to appreciate those painted at that level. So it's one of these good things to kind of keep yourself in check, so you don't overdo things because you don't have time. Usually, at least that's what it's been like for me.
Yeah, no, I love it. So some other ways that I kind of continue to stay motivated. So we've spoken a lot about finding motivation, and there's, I mean, I'm sure you've got plenty more, and I'd love to keep picking at this. But I know for me, like, once I've been inspired, and I'm like, right, how do I continue to be inspired? One way I love is looking at things like the slow grow campaigns, or painting pledges. Like, I know Heralds of War, which is probably the best podcast in Australia. No offense to everyone else, but Australia's best podcast for Age of Sigmar has a monthly hobby kind of challenge where everyone posts a picture of their photo using a hashtag, and they share their progress over time. And you know, starting off with 5,000 points and building over time, or pledging to paint 10 models a month or a week. Over time, you then quickly realize that if you keep hitting your small goals, in 6 months' time, you have now fully painted 2,000 point force, or you've got X amount of models painted from your backlog. And there's plenty of those pledges around. You know, Games Workshop put on things like Armies on Parade, so you can prepare for things like that as well to kind of build your force, or find a small campaign that you can join.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these tips that we've already touched upon kind of applies here as well. Like, if you already have motivation, then like keep doing these things. Like, before you get tired of painting grots, paint some other models in between. Like, paint 5 grots and then paint something else. Or if you really like playing games and you're in a hype of playing games, before you get tired of it, like, don't play 100 in 50 days. Like, do something in between those games that kind of gets you hyped about playing the next Age of Sigmar game. So kind of just to mix it up in a good way before you get tired. That's like my biggest tip, at least.
No, I love that. Realizing when you're getting to burnout, and switching gears so that you don't look at your grots and realize, I never want to paint another grot again. And I'm sure I don't ever want to paint another grot for a while.
And you're going to end up painting another 120 in 2 years anyway.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, if I feel like that at 40 grots, like if I get to 40 grots and I'm like, I hate grots, I never want to paint them again, and my army needs 100 of them, I either need to change my list, or I need to find a way to keep motivated. Yeah.
Giving yourself candy after every painted.
Find that motivation, that technique. Even, I mean, taking short breaks, playing video games. I find painting motivation comes from listening to podcasts, listening to hell. One of my favorite motivators, and this might seem I don't know how this will be perceived, but I love sharing my photos on Twitter. I know you're on Instagram. On Facebook, there's a lot of Facebook groups dedicated to Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and at least on Wednesday we have WIP Wednesday, or Work in Progress Wednesday, and people share pictures of their hobby, and you know, seeing people's reactions and their comments about my work, you know, pressing like, or you know, they love it. That's a real motivator, that people like what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's super easy to be discouraged because once again you look at what other people do, and you go into Games Workshop Army Painters group and you see all these like Richard Gray, who just won like Golden Demon Silver, and you see his minis and they look fantastic, and you feel like you can't post there because people will be negative. But that's not what this community is about. Like, everyone is super friendly. Everyone gives very nice critiques that are appropriate for that level you are on. So if you are a new painter, you're still going to get good tips how to take it to the next level. They're not going to tell you you're not good enough to win a Golden Demon. Nobody cares about that. Like, everyone is here to make sure you have fun. And yeah, I found that like at YouTube when I started posting videos. I found that at Instagram when I started posting pictures, like, everyone is super friendly. And yeah, you're not going to get hate even if you're not the best in the world. So
no, and if you ask for feedback, and I think this is where if you're looking for motivation to improve to win a best painted competition, the community is really good. I'm like, well, here's a particular model. What do you think I could do to improve? And the community are quite constructive. They're not, this is garbage. And asking for feedback and being open to feedback. I just had a video chat with some amazing Australian painters only last week. And that was one of the big topics, was really about being open to feedback and being willing to embrace it and ask for it. You know, not a lot of people like hearing negative feedback, but that's when you get to improve the most. You know, yes, your model looks amazing, but have you thought about doing some OSL? Have you decided, you know, maybe instead of doing a brown base, you should try a yellow base, and that would change the dynamic of the model. And that's how I improve, and that's how I get better likes. And you know, those likes is not an ego boost. Don't feel like it's an ego boost. It's just an acknowledgement you're doing really good work, and the community is traditionally really good like that.
Yeah, and I think all feedback that's like, even if it's just a like, it kind of gives you a boost, not in your ego, but in your motivation. Like, oh, people actually appreciate this, which means that I'm on the right track. I can keep doing this and yeah, still enjoy it.
Yeah. Have you got any more tips, or are we kind of like, is the well dry, or have you got any more tips for us?
One thing that kind of keeps me motivated to develop is analyzing things. And this is with everything I do, whether it's work or it's my YouTube channel, or if I paint miniatures or play games, is analyzing how I can become better at something. So when it comes to paint, for example, I go to Golden Demon website. I download the photos of the miniatures that I really appreciate, and I open it up, and instead of just scrolling it by in Instagram, like 2 seconds, I look at the photo for 10, 15, 20 minutes and just look at, okay, how did he paint the Slayer Sword winner now with this beautiful troll, the then called Troggoth. I just looked at like how he painted the nails on the toes of the miniature. And for me, that was sort of like, yeah, of course, that's how I should paint my toenails on the troll or on my giant. So just analyzing things and analyzing how I can be better at the game, or better at painting or building terrain, or how I can get better at doing videos or podcasting or whatever you do.
No, I couldn't agree more. Looking at inspiration, or even going one step further and asking. I've asked Vince Venturella so many times about some different techniques, and you know, he has an amazing series of videos where he puts out these hobby tips. But
cheating.
Yeah, hobby cheating videos on a Friday/Saturday, and they're really great. You know, looking at Luke's APS, he does really good stuff around terrain. Miniac does really good videos. And I've reached out to a bunch of those people, and they're more than happy to provide feedback. So asking for people and asking for their feedback and their commentary, and looking at the way they break things down. I really like it. What an age we live in, that we can look at a troll's toenail and work out how to best paint that. What an age we live in.
Yeah, and you can ask that Golden Demon winner. You can ask the best painter in the world or the best terrain builder in the world how I can improve stuff or how he painted his toenails. And that is, there haven't ever been times like this before. So
what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
I'll talk about a gaming one. I think we've talked a lot about painting. I'd love to talk a little bit about gaming. So I mentioned earlier, I've tried a lot of different armies, and I stick with them for at least 6 to 9 months before I move on. In the case of the Empire/Free People, it's 14 years, but I usually stick with my army for a while. And there's this learning curve, and I'm sure it's in painting. When you pick up a new technique or a new army for the first time, you suck. You really suck, and you've got to practice. You've got to try different things. The performance is not going to go as well as you planned, but then through the learning curve, you kind of break through this wall, and you go from hot garbage to, oh, I know what I'm doing. It's recently happened to me with 3D printing. I kind of was okay, got frustrated, tried some things, and now my prints are becoming really good. Gloomspite, I've now gone at an event only a few weeks ago. I went 4-1, where it wasn't that long ago that I was kind of 3-2 or 2-3. And it just comes with practice and trying, and even when like I lose a game, I often kind of withdraw a little bit, and it's not that I'm having a negative experience. It's me thinking in my head, like, where did I go wrong? What can I do differently next time? Was there something I should have been better prepared for? Did I deploy wrong? Really trying to think through so that when I'm put in that position again, I avoid those errors and I get in a better position. And no different to, again, trying different painting techniques or different hobby techniques. So
yeah, and we often have, like, when we compare and try new stuff, we think that once I've built the same list as Ben Sava had, where he won like every tournament with Daughters of Cain, just because you buy that army doesn't mean you're gonna win like he does. So don't be discouraged when you don't win everything, or when you paint something and it doesn't look like Richard Gray or David Soper. Like, try again and like do it for yourself. Do something that you enjoy doing, and don't give up the first time. Just keep trying.
That's one of the reasons why I do that video series, Faction Focus, where I get some players on the stream and I'm about, like, talk to me about Stormcast. Like, let's assume I know nothing about Stormcast. How do you build a list? How do you how do you play with them? What's the best way of using an army? So I hear instead of me learning from scratch and making all the mistakes, how do I avoid as many mistakes as possible and learn from masters of painting, of playing? And again, there's so much content on blogs, on podcasts, on YouTube and Twitch. Again, but we're in such an amazing time where information is everywhere.
Yeah, Pinterest is another one of these where you can find so much inspiration.
I've probably only got one more that I can think of. Do you have any other tips that you?
Let me read through my notes when you talk about yours, and we can see if I have something more to talk about. Yeah, I think like the last one I had on this list as well was just YouTube and Pinterest. Just there's so much out there, both for inspiration and to improve. You'll find something that suits your style. You'll find a creator that fits your, I don't know, what you like to listen to. If you don't like a Swedish dialect, like don't just watch Age of Squidmar. Go to Vince Venturella or Sergio Calvo Rubio if you're Spanish. There's hundreds and hundreds of creators that are incredible. So,
but no, definitely do watch Age of Squidmar because they are good. So 2 more things that I can think of while it's the top of my head. One is to avoid distractions. So find a space where you're going to be not distracted, and that might mean turning off your mobile phone or moving your mobile phone away, and not getting sucked into Facebook. Maybe it's not playing video games or moving away from your PS4 or whatever it might be. But often when you're in a hobby lull or even like a gaming lull, I find that I'm easily distracted and I'll play a video game. And then once I start playing a video game, I might go, oh, I'll only play 30 minutes. That turns easily into a 4-hour session. And that's 4 hours I could have been painting or playing Warhammer. So look for ways to avoid those distractions. Then the other one I had was if you're somebody who's in maybe their work is crazy, they've got family, they've got big commitments, you may want to get up 1 hour earlier, or you might want to go to bed 1 hour later. And in that 1 hour, use that time to hobby. If you're someone who's time poor, recently for an event, funnily enough, I brought miniatures to work, and I would paint miniatures at my desk during the lunch break. And that allowed me to chip away 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. And if I extrapolate that over 5 days the working week, that's 2.5 hours of painting additionally to what I do at home in the weekend or after work. So I was able to speed up and hit my hobby deadline by finding extra time, whether it's through hacks, whether it's commission painting, whether it's buying tools to speed things up, or finding more time in the day.
Yeah, and a thing that I did because I have my hobby space in the basement now, so I'm kind of cut away from the family. But when I feel like I want to do something, but I still want to hang out with my family, I bring up painting stuff to the living room table while my kids are watching the evening tea shows. So that way I can be around the kids while they're doing something when they don't need my direct attention, but they still feel my presence there. That's another one of these things that you can do, just like build next to your kids. It's fine.
Funnily enough, Spooky Luke in the chat has said that he does a lot of his model building at work. And that's a really good technique. If you build your models at work, then when you bring them home, it's only paint time, as opposed to committing to your 1 hour or 2 hours a day or week or whatever that looks like, and half of that's building. At least if you can find extra space somewhere, hell, maybe you're clipping models on a treadmill. Who knows? That way dangerous.
Well, in the bathroom, sitting on the toilet.
On the toilet, yep. Like maybe you're reading your army books and building, and you, who knows? Like,
been there.
the toilet part or at work.
No, the bathroom is the best because I have 2 kids, so now I have 3. And the bathroom is pretty much the only time during the day when you get your own time. So, like reading army books, building models. I've edited YouTube videos in the bathroom. Like, perfect place to just have half an hour by yourself.
Well, there you go. Find spaces where you're not distracted, and whether that's going to Games Workshop and painting at your local hobby store or your Games Workshop where you're away from family, whether it's in a room. If you've got a study room, or you're able to lock yourself in a garage, find ways to remove those distractions. Yes, your family's a distraction, but also, obviously, you can't lock yourself away in every spare minute you've got. And I think what you said about building models in the lounge room with your family is a great way to be there, be present, but also achieve some of your goals. Like my wife watches a lot of crime shows. I'm not that interested in crime shows, but I want to be there so she watches. So I can build models and I can do some base coats, in the lounge room, to kind of like 2 birds, 1 stone.
Mm-hmm. And kind of the opposite of this as well is one thing that really keeps me motivated and makes it easy for me to hobby is to have a desk that's always prepared for me to come and work. And I know not everyone has a house, not everyone has a big apartment where you can have this ready, but it could be as simple as having, like in your windows, you have these sort of like boards. I don't know the English word for it, but you can have your paint set up there by the window. So whenever you have 10 minutes, like before you're leaving to a friend's house or something, and you're just waiting for 10 minutes, you can pull out your wet palette and just paint for 10 minutes. If you have it packed down in boxes, you're never going to do that, because the process of just bringing it out is 10 minutes.
Actually, you raise a really good point as well, is to make sure that you've got the tools that you need for the job. So if you're about to start a new army, you're about to paint a new unit, make sure that you've got glue, make sure you've got all of the colors. And if you need to go buy colors, go buy them in advance. I found this recently, actually, where I was about to start painting my Slanesh model, and I didn't have Demonette hide. And that was a critical base color that I needed to move on. So it stalled my whole project. So I needed to make sure that I got that base paint, and I made sure that every other paint that I needed, I had bought in advance. So my hobby motivation wasn't being stalled until my next time to go to a hobby store or the Games Workshop to pick up tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great one as well.
I'm kind of running out of things. I think when I think about what I kind of wrote down, these are all the different things that I do to kind of, oh, actually, I've got one more. Have you got anything else before I throw my final one?
No, I think I'm done, actually. It felt like we've touched upon it. If it wasn't my list and I didn't talk about it, it was because it wasn't your list. So,
all right. So the last one I have, and this may resonate with some people may not resonate. I'm a naturally competitive person. I've always been being a competitive person. I have worked in sales for a long time. I'm very just naturally competitive, but I'm competitive with myself. I'm not naturally competitive with other people. So when I go to events, I always want to do better than what I did in the past. So if I play Gloomspite Gits and I went 3-2, so I got 3 wins and 2 losses, I'm going to push myself to get 4-1. So I'm competing. While I'm competing with others, I'm mostly competing with myself, and I want to be the best person I can be. Whether it's be the best sportsman, where it's best painted, best destruction. I always try to motivate myself with my own personal goals. So I don't rely on others. I can't control how the draw goes. I can't control how my opponents are going to, or the other players at the event perform. But what I can do is I can try to push myself to the best I can possibly do with the situations that I have. And if I don't do well, that's because I failed myself. If I do well, I'm pushing myself. So I don't know how many people are like that. I think I'm quite unique sometimes, that I'm very like a very outgoing kind of person, but also a very competitive person. So yeah, I'm going to keep it in check sometimes, because some people don't like that, and I get docked in sports.
Yeah. No, I'm exactly the same. That's every time I do something, I feel like I have to be the best at it, and I feel like not necessarily that I have to win, but I feel like I have to be my best, and sometimes I have to kind of pull myself back, especially with playing, because as I told you, with my Sylvaneth army, like this last tournament, I felt like I played, for me, a boring game, because I just felt like I had to win. I had to improve my previous results, and I don't know. Sometimes for me, it's the opposite. I have to not have goals to enjoy the process more.
Yeah, look, the goals for me is again, for me and me only. It's not something that I share with everybody, but I find it's a great motivator, and it helps me think about and kind of set my own little next goals, and just keep on track of them. I don't know. It's, there's been plenty of times, especially in that learning curve, where I haven't done well with a particular army, let's say Gloomspite. I'm getting really frustrated. I'm getting really frustrated that the army isn't doing what I want it to do. But by having those personal goals that I've got to myself, that I'm pushing for, it allows me to, instead of get really upset and kind of put the army away or sell it because it's not working, it's like, right, how can I be the best I can be as a Gloomspite player? I'm going to talk to other people. I'm going to look at different ways the army works, and I'm going to analytically break that down so I'm the best I can be. So yeah, that's me.
A good ending point, I guess.
Look,
yeah. No, yeah.
I'm really excited about that list. I think we've spoken for about a good hour on, I guess, the different things that we have done to either find motivation, stay motivated, and break through those times where we've had hobby burnout. It's real. We do too much hobby, too much gaming. Maybe something happens to your army and it's no longer as good as it used to be, and you get demotivated. Just I think it's finding motivation for yourself and finding it from others and drawing inspiration is very valuable.
Trying different stuff. Yeah, definitely.
I don't want to lose anyone from the hobby. So stay motivated, keep your motivation.
Keep experimenting, try new stuff.
So Emil, if people want to learn more about you, if they want to kind of see your channel, which is an awesome channel, I highly recommend you subscribe to it. Where can people find you?
On Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, I'm Age of Squidmar. So it's almost like Sigmar, but with a squid instead. And on YouTube, I'm Squidmar Miniatures.
Don't make the mistake that I made and type in squig, as in like Gloomspite squig, because I'm like, where is his Age of Squidmar? But no, it's squid. Why Squidmar? Yes. What's the story behind Squidmar?
Yeah, well, I told you about my gaming group. We have like a Facebook chat, and that one was named Age of Squidmar when we started, and it kind of just stuck, and I really liked that name. So I asked the guys if I could use it for my Instagram account, and that one grew to like 3,000 followers in a few months. And then when I started the YouTube channel, I just couldn't leave it. And yeah, now it's like 5,600, 700 or something on YouTube. So I'm stuck with it.
It's great. It's a really good channel. I've learned a lot. You have very concise videos that are very detailed and well put together. So
yeah, it's my job so that's what I do for a living. I do photography and filming. So yeah, I teach people how to paint using my work skills. So yeah,
love it. And by the way, I have put down a bunch of the links. I don't think I'll put your Instagram on, but I have put down your YouTube channel and your Twitter handle in the channel description. So I highly recommend you guys follow and subscribe. I will find your Instagram and I'll put it and edit it so it's in there as well. But Emil, this was an amazing chat. I'm inspired. Unfortunately, it's 9 p.m. and I need to go to bed, but I'm inspired as hell. I'm going to build, I'm going to paint, I'm going to play, I'm going to have a whole bunch of fun. What's that?
You have to paint your terrain.
Oh my gosh. I have like 200 pieces of terrain that I've 3D printed that I need to do before my tournament in October. And if I increase the size of my tournament, which is maybe right now, I need to find more terrain. So this, I think I'll be putting this video on replay very, very soon to get me through painting these 200 pieces.
Sounds good. I have some commissions I have to take care of and edit some videos. And yeah, it's going to be my day.
Amazing. Well, mate, thank you very much for being on here. I hope you guys who have watched this have enjoyed this chat. Highly recommend going and seeing Age of Squidmar. If you already like this channel, awesome. Comment, let us know what your hobby tips are and how you stay motivated. If you haven't subscribed and we enjoyed this stuff, we put on plenty more content. I've got some really good stuff coming very, very soon. I think we're gonna celebrate the ending of General's Handbook 2018, and we're gonna do a bit of a party with some awesome people. So stay tuned, guys. Thanks very much. Until next time, peace out.
Have a great day.
I think I need to make up like an ending.
Bye.
See you guys.